Okay, everybody set? We get water? We're good?
Ready?
Go for it.
All right. So, on behalf of Morgan staff and Mr. Webb, it's a pleasure to be able to present tonight to the Board of Education. I think before we get started, one of the things that, as I'm sitting listening to all the different presentations, is the connections that are forming within the district and the sense of purpose and the connection between the buildings that we're seeing in terms of what it is that we really want to achieve in this district. And I think another note, really, as an administrative team, in particular this year, the idea of teaching and learning is such a complicated craft that I think in some ways its level of challenge in this day and age, even for us as administrators, to identify what does good practice look like. And the fact that this year we've really spent a lot of time talking about high quality instruction and being able to get into classrooms together to be able to have conversation around what we're seeing, what type of evidence are we collecting to really help, as Claudia pointed out, in terms of a teacher who may be in their earlier years and trying to focus in on improving, and how do you as administrator help them improve. And so I think as we talk about budget, you know, and look at the fact of what is our ultimate goal, it really is empowering both staff and students in recognizing what's important. And I think at the high school level, it really is establishing that level of perseverance and grit, and the idea that students really need to have a mindset. We started this year with the faculty presenting the concept of a mindset and looking at growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And we talked a lot about the fact that as adults we oftentimes put limits on students because of the fact of what we perceive as ability. And I think from today's presentation I want to really offer the extension that we continue to challenge that mindset and continue to look at the fact that we can never give up on kids. Absolutely not. And I think at the high school level, oftentimes it is a challenge to look at how we expand and continue to challenge what it is that we want to have for our kids at that level, 9 through 12. So tonight we're going to get started. Just a little bit in terms of introduction. I've been at Morgan now since 2007. I can't believe it. And Mr. Webb is joining us for his first year as assistant principal. Again, in that time, I think that the alignment of a K through 12 system is something that I'm seeing. And so tonight's presentation, I'm really excited because I feel that there is a level of commitment to the district driving forces, and I'll speak to that in terms of the Morgan initiatives. There's a clear focus, and I feel as if there's no more new initiatives, that the staff recognize that the work is just going to get harder, because now we've identified what it is that we need to do. And there's no more spinning around, there's no more balls in the air. It really is, this is the work that we're doing. And while it may not be, you know, the next new thing, it is what is going to make our kids the best that they can possibly be. We're going to also look at, you know, the highlights and considerations, as we've seen from the other schools' budget presentations. Enrollment and staffing at Morgan and the implications that it has in terms of budget. And then specifically looking at the requests, and then providing a little bit of a summary of the proposed budget, and then time for questions. So in looking at the driving forces and unifying principles, in terms of where we stand as a district, for myself and the other administrators, I think that it really is a guide toward decision making. And it helps in terms of me, I'm abstract, and not concrete sequential. So it helps me stay to the green line, and that's important to recognize that, is this worth it in terms of a program? Does this meet the needs that we say it is intended for in terms of students? This helps me to say, yes, this is important, or no, this can wait. And I think that's the benefit to having this across all of the schools, rather than just being me making decisions upon myself. But rather it's really looking at the big umbrella, how we're receiving students from Elliott, but also how we're making that transition from college and career readiness, which for me tends to be a daunting task, that when they receive that diploma, what are they going to do when they leave? And are they going to make that transition? Are they going to make that transition to college or career well? So, in terms of the first driving force, I have to say that this year in particular, we have taken a real serious look at the driving force number one. I think the support for literacy is critical in all schools. But as far as the high school goes, that we know that high school teachers tend to be focused on content. And skills oftentimes are something that they look at and assume students should already have these. Students should be good readers, students should be good writers. And we did a gap analysis at the beginning of the year, and I shifted the conversation in terms of what is it that you want students to be better at. And believe it or not, they really didn't talk about content, they talked about skills. And that's really the involvement of the K through 12 foundation skills and competencies, but it also really identified a target area to which we, across the board, every single discipline has a focus this year on literacy. And we narrowed it down even more in terms of reading, because I looked at it in terms of we can't be great at improving student skills in all of these areas all this year. So we really identified key particular areas by department. All teachers developed their own professional learning plans within their departments, really focused on clear, specific, measurable reading goals. Some of them looked at pre-reading strategies, some of them looked at the power of vocabulary, some of them looked at active reading strategies, some of them were looking at alignment to close reading text for Common Core. But we finally are getting teachers to talk in terms of what it looks like in terms to be an effective reader and what are the instructional strategies that I'm going to get my students to do to be able to demonstrate in their classes. And so the conversation, and at the high school we have departments, we don't have teams. And we've tried to shift that up a little bit in terms of allowing for grade level department conversations. So math and social studies and English teachers are talking together about the students that they share. And that's been powerful because this school-wide focus on literacy has brought them together to say, gee, this is what we're working on. The fact that the Common Core State Standards expects there to be an interdisciplinary approach is one that we're continuing to look at even as we go into the new school and discuss how we get students to be able to demonstrate their skills in all the classes. So as the English teacher, yes, I may see the very best that a student has in terms of their reading and writing skills because they're the English teacher. But they should demonstrate those skills in the tech ed areas. They should demonstrate those skills in the math area. And that's where we're getting a consistency of language and expectations as far as what skills are needed for students. And then for teachers to get empowered by, oh, so they can actually demonstrate good writing skills in my class. And yes, they can. And these are the ways that we're going to try and get you guys to focus in on that. So this is our full court press this year, absolutely, in terms of driving force number one. Big question that I think we hear a lot is how do we engage students in meaningful and purposeful ways? And I look at this particular driving force and I think of that question. And we challenge one another at the Morgan School in terms of what that looks like. Everything from engagement, what does it look like when you see a student engaged? It's not just passively listening to you, but what exactly are the students doing? How will you know that they're actually thinking and applying that thinking? So this has led into a discussion about instructional strategies, but it's also looked at in ways that we're actually having students demonstrate in meaningful ways in terms of assessment. And I'll be the first to say that we are in the midst of this. This isn't a well-oiled machine yet, but this is the fact that we are finally having these conversations that matter about the things that I think are going to definitely spiral kids to be better at adjusting to difficult situations when they leave us, because they'll have specific skills that will help them to be able to then identify new situations. And if they can communicate effectively, if they can be able to think deeply about something rather than just look for the answer. And that's been really challenging at the high school level, to get them to think deeply about things. And what that conversation that we have with teachers all the time is, what does that look like when you get a student to be able to think deeply rather than just look at the answer in the textbook? And what are the kinds of questions that you'll ask? What are the kinds of assessments that you'll, require of them? And so in many ways we are taking a look at the foundation skills and competencies. We have academic expectations that right now we have school-wide rubrics for, and those exist in 7 areas. Many of those academic expectations are also connected to the foundation skills and competencies. So we're seeing kind of a marriage between the district foundation skills and competencies and our academic expectations, and how we're getting students to be able to demonstrate it, but with the junior portfolio, we're also getting them to talk about it. So as far as their growth mindset in terms of what it is to be a really good reader, and showcasing their work in terms of growth. So from freshman year, this is a paper that I wrote that I was very weak in citing evidence on. And as a result, I improved over the course of the next couple of years in terms of my ability to cite specific text evidence that would help me to earn a better score on the reading or the writing rubric. So we're looking at ways that we can, and for staff, as they look at this list now, they don't want to leave the room and, run, but rather I think they see the connectedness between curriculum implementation deals specifically with foundation skills and competencies. So when we look at units of instruction, we are taking a look at what are the specific skills. You can't have a whole menu of skills in these units of instruction, but let's figure out some real power skills that you want to attack, and then how are you using that within the curriculum. The Common Core State Standards has actually been a really good incentive for teachers to recognize that they need to take ownership in all the different discipline areas. It's not just about the math teachers, and it's not just about the English teachers, but it's really about the connectedness as a school for our focus on literacy. And that's helped us, I think, in many ways in terms of our professional learning plans and the ways in which we've said, guys, this is what we're focused in on, and we're not doing any other of your projects here, but we're doing this in order to see improvement. Because I'll be the first to say that our reading scores are not where they should be. And that's a concern, and a concern that we've now said, this is what we're going to focus in on, and in many ways looking at these various initiatives, whether you take technology integration. Where we're going with that is, show me how you're using technology to improve a student's literacy skill. So I'm not getting them off the reservation in terms of I want to do this specific project, but they're going to really look at technology integration and the kinds of tools in order for them to be able to associate with that school-wide focus. I think technology integration, again, speaking to what Linda said, we have a lot of technology. The key question is, how are we using it? And what are the ways in which we're using it to have students actually either demonstrate their application in new ways, be able to use it as a medium in order to understand more clearly what it is, projects that afford them opportunities to demonstrate higher level thinking skills, critical areas, and collaboration. So the idea that we're using a lot of the tools for collaboration as students enjoy that medium, but also that's the medium that's going to be expected of them when they leave. So in many ways, helping teachers. And I would say that technology integration for us this year really is kind of couched with the literacy initiative, but many of them have developed a very good relationship with our library media specialist. So what we found is that there's lots of collaboration there for projects that they want to say, hey, I'm not quite sure, can you help me in being able to think about this project a little bit differently? I'd like to try something new. And I think that's been very, very helpful. Again, I think the idea that we have the junior portfolio exhibition panel, this is going to be our first year. We're very excited about the fact that this will showcase a level of personalization from them. They're going to have to get up in front of a panel and present their work. And that's a little scary, I think, that first time, but the ability for them to just organize themselves and discuss what they've learned and hopefully showcase how they've applied what they know to various assessments and being able to showcase that. We're working with the juniors right now to kind of finalize their presentations and get themselves ready for that. And the last two, student engagement and student voice, I think that's kind of my rally cry for high school students, that in order for them to feel a sense of belonging, they need to be engaged, not only in classes, but they also need to be engaged in the school. So we really try to look at 9th and 10th grade in terms of involvement in a variety of extracurricular activities, clubs, like anything that they have a passion or interest, we're trying to expand and explore so we can grab them. In addition, I think student voice, as Linda pointed out, is incredibly important. And for high school students, when they feel they're listened to, then they have that opportunity to respect, but also feel somewhat empowered. And so we have various ways, and Tyler's taking the lead this year to actually meet with focus groups of students to review over our school climate plan, but also look at ways in which we can increase student leadership, because we've seen definitely a lot of students empowering themselves. We have a brand new student leadership society that was actually started by a student, and then he found advisors at the school who now are working with a group of about 20. That is a really cool, they are learning about leadership, and they're inviting people in to talk to them about leadership. They're taking on projects that they want to be able to improve the school, and this is all student initiated. It really came from them, and I think that's part of the opportunity of giving them some taste of leadership and then increasing their opportunities to be involved. The idea of collaborative team, I really like a guy by the name of Mike Schmoker. He's written several books, and he talks about collaboration allows teachers to capture each other's fund of collective intelligence, and that at the high school level, isolation is really a very slippery slope, that teachers can shut their door and everybody kind of goes about their day. And the idea of sharing is something that, beyond just talking about what happened on the weekend or talking about something that has nothing to do with really anything that matters, is something that's been quite a challenge for me over the course of time at Morgan. But we've been able to really break that barrier and begin to have conversations that matter, conversations that we can have in department common planning. So the common planning period is where teachers are able to, in content areas, talk about the work. And I'll have to say that curriculum is what they talk about a lot, and the implementation, units of instruction, ways that they're embedding the foundation skills and competencies, junior portfolio exhibition, so it's generally embraced. I think that the next challenge for us is to talk in terms of interdisciplinary teams of teachers, being able to focus on grade level and looking at skills and how we embrace the idea of focusing in on those skills. And again, looking at that level of personalization of learning and the collaboration part, you can see that in order for us to address all of these different initiatives, that it's going to take a lot of conversation in various ways. In terms of our academic and behavioral student intervention system, part of our Morgan Student Assistance team is looking very closely at that. I'd say that we have tiers of intervention, and we continue to look at that, evaluate it, and then review what is helping. Currently, we have several tiers of intervention that are needing revision. And so in the course of time, we're taking this year to really help in terms of making some decisions about how to best meet the academic needs, but also behaviorally, our referrals in terms of discipline referrals have gone way down, which is good. But there are some chronic issues that we need to take a look at in terms of how do we want to address that. And a lot of it does fall in terms of engagement in class and the ability for students to develop a habits of mind. So we've talked a lot about how do we instruct in terms of a habits of mind, what are those protocols that we want in every class, so students recognize common language, which we've heard tonight. It's really important for even high school kids to have a common language, common expectations. They like structure. They're not going to tell you they like structure, but they like structure. So again, I mean, part of really how we're performing and meeting that district unified, that it's really focused on improving teaching and learning, and the ways in which we're doing it, we're really talking about what it is that we need to do. And I think the fact that it's focused, that staff recognize that they're learning from one another and using in-house expertise, that we see a lot of the teachers in terms of the professional learning plans going to the English teachers to ask about close reading. I've not really heard about exactly what are the steps that I need to do. How do I incorporate active reading strategies in my class? Can you help me? Can you sit down with me and give me some, specific ways that I can do that? Why should I need to teach content vocabulary before I teach a lesson, that type of thing. So we're really opening up conversations that when they ask, they get a lot of feedback back, and then it helps them to try some things, which I think is taking the fear factor away from, I don't really know how to teach skills, rather than I'm comfortable in my content. But the two really are empowered together, and I think that the idea of looking at how we're doing this, I'm really proud of this one, because I think that it's happening more and more at the high school, which is really good. Safe environment, again, this is one that we continue to look at recommendations for school safety and security practices. We do have an SRO at the building. We, as part of Tyler and I being a new team, a new partnership, we're really looking at protocols, having a lot of staff input in terms of what are the series of steps that we're looking for in terms of handling both on the protocols for safety that we have in place, but also looking at the social and emotional support for students. And this is something that we're looking at our support service staff to provide a lot of assistance for staff in terms of what are the things that we need to be looking for and how can we provide a level of support in terms of providing that level of safety for students. And so that's been very, very helpful. In terms of work related to the new high school, again, we're looking at ways in which we can continue to work with the architects and the building committee in terms of where we stand for the new high school project. We are looking at a classroom advisory committee to help us in terms of what should be in that actual general classroom in terms of technology, the way that the classroom is laid out. So that is something that the staff is involved in and we'll be talking with the architects about as we go further into the project. I think part of the connectedness that we have in terms of maintaining positive relationships with parents and community members, I see a real need for us at the high school level to connect what we're doing and to be able to share that information on a regular basis. But we have specific areas that I think that certain organizations have helped us out. I can say that the PTA has been great in terms of affording us opportunities to host programs in which we have the school as the site for those programs. I know that in addition they recently held a panel for our program chairs that was really well attended and also helpful for us to be able to explain what we're doing and the kinds of initiatives that we're involved in. Community outreach, I think for us, the alignment with Clinton Youth and Family Services is helpful. Also looking at the alignment of resources that we have within the community to help not only students but also parents, and being able to look at ways that we can allocate funds and resources together to be able to help those who are in need. Our projects that we've had, including Husky Helper, even yesterday we had the homecoming parade as part of Christmas in Clinton, which worked out really well and it was fun, and I think that the community again saw students at the high school level maybe in a different light. And so those are areas that we're going to continue. Oh, and we did win the soup competition, evidently, so that was a good thing. Expanding our vocational offerings too. We have a vocational program currently, and we have connections with a lot of businesses in Clinton, but I think that's an area that we're looking at in terms of exploring internships as well as opportunities for them to job shadow. So connecting the initiatives to our budget highlights and considerations. In terms of support for curriculum implementation, we are looking at increases in our textbooks, instructional materials, and resources. I'll specifically address in the areas of Common Core, we have purchased materials for algebra and geometry, and we're looking to purchase textbooks for Algebra 2, civics textbooks, and updating our Intro to Criminal Law textbooks, which are definitely outdated. We're also looking to support new course offerings, so next year we're going to expand our advanced placement offerings to include advanced placement government, so we will need to purchase materials and textbooks to support that course. Technology integration, again, looking at student learning and the kinds of programs. We have a blended online learning model at Morgan using Odysseyware. Odysseyware is a program that has been helpful for many students to be able to earn credit. We've adopted a blended model, knowing that the students really need to have instructional assistance with this program, and it's been successful. And we continue to look at this as an option for students in terms of credit retrieval, but also earning extra credit if they so choose. We have Naviance, which is a program intended to help students with their student success plans. The guidance department has been rolling out Naviance, and this online program has been very helpful to students in terms of archiving information, but also being able to look at ways that they can support their transition from school to college. And so we're importing information electronically. Students have access to it. They also can place their common application online, and we're utilizing those supports and modules for teachers to be able to upload the common application. So it's a user-friendly tool for students, for parents, and for teachers. So Naviance is very important. And again, a lot of the Web 2.0 tools that have been mentioned, we certainly are looking at those and support for those in terms of what subscriptions we need to actually pay for and those that are beneficial that are free. Professional development and staff development, as mentioned before, real focus on literacy this year, and looking at the fact that probably next year we'll also have more focus on literacy, unpacking the Common Core and its implications for the different discipline areas, looking at technology integration, as well as positive behavior intervention support system. So again, really helping teachers understand the support system model for positive behavior, as well as helping them look at discipline and sort of a philosophy associated with positive discipline. Next, in terms of authentic application of learning and student leadership, concerning the budget, the support for our student advisory and mentoring program, it's increased in terms of the number of students who are actually participating as student leaders. So we run various leadership workshops before they actually participate in the summer program. We want to continue to offer that and feel that that's an important part of Morgan. In addition, expanding student leadership opportunities, connecting curriculum pathways to authentic experiences. This is something we'll talk about a little bit more with personnel implications, but looking at definitely more career exploration. Also field trips, job shadowing, mentoring, and connecting internships to our curriculum pathways. In terms of personnel implications regarding the budget, there are three major areas that, in terms of the direction that we're heading, to give their budget considerations for next year. There are support for teachers in the area of technology integration. Really has required time for teachers to plan lessons, provide training, and collaborate. Support for our media specialists is definitely needed to afford her some opportunities to be able to work individually with students, but also with staff, to afford her opportunities to help teachers instruct lessons, to provide training. She's also started a new student technology leadership group, the I-Team, and has time to be able to work with them in terms of training and assistance, in which they then are being trained to help teachers with their technology needs. In addition, the media specialist also would like to research and provide resources for teachers to support Common Core, as well as for SBAC testing. So we're looking at ways in which we can have her provide assistance with the different departments as they align their resources, and also look at the research component of Common Core. And I think that's an important area, especially given the fact that there's going to be so much in terms of what they're asked for the SBAC test in terms of research. Lastly, as far as the Learning Commons model go with technology integration, we want to be able to afford students the opportunity to continue to use the library as a Learning Commons, but also we want to provide staff the opportunity to have support in their training for learning how to use technology tools to improve their classroom instruction. So as a result of that, we do have a need in terms of supervision of students and management of books, technology equipment, and just basic day-to-day library procedures to be able to manage all of that. Under literacy intervention and coaching, again, to assist staff in delivering specific reading intervention programs for students who may not be at grade level for reading, we'd like to restructure our process and procedures for intervention to better meet the needs of our students. In addition, we'd like to provide staff with resources and strategies and professional development to implement Common Core practices into instructional planning and increase literacy instruction in all disciplines, specifically focusing on instructional practices and resources to incorporate strategies to assist students in their reading and writing. As part of the shift in focus and teaching away from content and more towards skills, more support is definitely needed for teachers to specifically target strong instructional practice to assist students. Collaboration could include individual teachers, department collaboration, grade level interdisciplinary teams, as well as full faculty professional development. This would then align with the K-8 model that exists in terms of math and literacy intervention. Third is our implementation of student success plans, junior portfolio, and secondary transition plans. The amount of work that has taken place so far in terms of implementing student success plans, as well as junior portfolio, and providing needs for secondary transition, has placed a lot of responsibilities on guidance counselors in our school. And at this point, we have looked at specific models to support meeting the transition needs of all students. We focused in on the concept of 9th and 10th of transition in, and the support model that we have for transition in, which would include programs that would be run by guidance currently and myself, which include the summer transition program, which is for 3 days that the board has supported. It also includes freshman seminar activities that allow for the guidance counselors to be able to go in and get to know the freshmen right from the get-go, to be able to deliver developmental guidance lessons in both freshman as well as sophomore advisories. Our mentoring program, which is now run out of our guidance office, which includes student mentors that go into our advisories. Those are lessons that are and activities that are developed. We also meet with our student mentors occasionally to be able to give them support in terms of how they're mentoring the freshmen. There's additional junior portfolio planning and workshops that we give to both freshmen and sophomores to plan for junior portfolio, and then coordination with advisory leaders for transition programs that are offered throughout the year. In addition, we're looking at 11 and 12 in terms of our transition out model. And again, looking at the needs that we have in terms of fulfilling all of those requirements to truly help students transition from their junior year to college and career ready. So at this point, we have specific areas that guidance counselors are now trying to juggle a lot of responsibilities in terms of individual meetings with all juniors. They run planning meetings for their seniors. They are planning with advisory coordinators. They're orchestrating job shadowing with Andrea Kay. They'd like to expand that job offering. They'd like to offer college fairs. They'd like to be able to run internships tied to our curriculum pathways. Looking at vocational opportunities for all students as tied to our curriculum pathways in terms of allowing them to be able to have time to go out into the community and develop a relationship with someone who they might find as a good connection if they're interested in that career, as well as the possibility of majoring in college. So these are all things that we see in terms of needing to be looked at, and we need to consider how much guidance can really address all of these responsibilities in addition to the daily responsibilities of handling students who come in with specific needs that you can't plan for. We also have the opportunity, to look at other possibilities for expanding our secondary transition, coordinating with our special education teachers and staff to be able to align the programs together to meet the needs of all students. So, in order to implement the Student Success Plan's junior portfolio and secondary transition, we really need to expand the support, and that was something that we had talked to Mr. Cross about in terms of what do we need to do, and so that got to the level of some personnel implications. Our enrollment, as mentioned with Elliot as well, is remaining consistent for the 2014-2015 school year. As a result of that, that's it. Good. Yeah. Our enrollment has dropped slightly over the past few years. Its highest being 610 in 2008, 2009. And again, we're pretty much consistent with 571. We had a significant staff reduction due to budget several years ago, which now the number of teachers that you see are pretty much consistent with what we've had over the course of time. Our average class size, as you see, is definitely helpful in achieving the level of engagement that we'd like at the high school level. Our class size range, as you can see, we try as best we can to keep the class size range as close to 10 as we can. A couple of outliers this year, and specifically in world language, you'll notice that it's at its lowest is 2. When I checked on that particular course, it's our Chinese 1 course, in which we don't typically run a course if it does not have 10 requests. And there were 11 requests initially in that course, and over those requests we decided to run that course. Several students decided, because of conflicts in their schedule, that they couldn't take that class, and then a few students decided to drop. So we're looking at ways in which we want to firm up our protocols for the add-drop process in terms of making students be able to commit to a course rather than having them switch. In addition, we're looking at ways in which we can offer opportunities for students at the middle school to maybe learn about Chinese in terms of an enrichment opportunity or after-school opportunity, so we can raise the numbers in Chinese. Because as a critical language, I think that it is something that we want to continue to offer, and the numbers of requests in Chinese 2 are definitely worth consideration of continuing the program, as well as Chinese 3. And definitely I see that program continuing at the high school level. This slide represents, again, the total request for the amounts in terms of our 2014-2015 budget. You can see the slight increase from 2013 to 2014 in some of the areas, but to highlight the textbook number specifically, there is an increase, as mentioned before, with the textbooks that we're looking for to purchase for Algebra 2, which would be for approximately 130 students to 150 students. So that would be the increase in terms of that number. Our library supplies, as far as materials, have gone up just a little bit in terms of increasing in nonfiction books for support for Common Core. Instructional materials, again, the cost of consumables, both in science as well as in technology education, has gone up, and as a result, we see a slight increase in instructional materials. Our operating expenses, again, you'll see a reduction in the operating expenses. That's been an ongoing reduction, which is good in terms of the efficiency that we have. Student activities going up a little bit. Summary of accounts in terms of decreases. Again, again, highlighting some of the areas in terms of where we're experiencing decreases. In looking at media, actually in terms of equipment, it's more in terms of media software that we're seeing a need for, as opposed to some of the media that's being used in the library. So there's a reduction that's reflected there. Online resources, really reducing the need for periodicals. Cost savings in Destiny account, just based on the current cost. With our adoptions of new books, we see a reduction in terms of the numbers for book rebinding. Photocopying costs, again, we have a lot of teachers that are going paperless, or at least trying to be as paperless as possible, so we're seeing a reduction in terms of the photocopying costs, as well as some postage. With our website being online, we have reduced the amount of paper that is being sent out. And again, under rentals, repair, maintenance, we see a reduction in those costs as well. For software maintenance, some of the software programs are actually free that we are now transitioning to, which is good. Savings of over a little bit over $1,000 there. Increases, again, as mentioned before, the largest increase coming in our textbooks. As I mentioned before, library books, an increase in terms of the supply for nonfiction requests coming both from English but also discipline areas, and that would register with the increase there. Media software in terms of online subscriptions to sites like Glogster and other sites that we need to continue to pay for that would be advantageous for our content areas. As mentioned before, the increase in consumable costs for both science and technology education results in the increase for instructional materials. And then we have slight increases in some of our office supplies, dues and fees, and transportation. And another just summary of our proposed budget with an increase from last year of $6,218. Again, a chunk of that increase primarily in the areas of instructional materials and textbooks. So in summary, budget requests really are looking at both the curriculum and personnel implications for our current and planned programs, support for maintaining our existing programs, commitment to providing intervention programs for students, and also professional development and training for staff. And that's it.
Questions for our high school staff?
When are we going to be talking about some of those personnel implications? Because that's not part of this
No, it's
conversation.
not part of their numbers.
No, and it's not part of this conversation, obviously, so in terms of operations budget. So when do we have that conversation?
Part of that will be when I take all of the budgets together and outline specifically how the combination of those personnel implications lay out in terms of grade level, instructional pieces, adjustments within the budget, within our organization, repurposing people, and then where there are truly new, absolute new positions. So that by the time we finish the process, you'll increasingly have a better and more clear picture of what those personnel requests will be, and then ultimately we have one more subcommittee meeting before I actually present the whole budget, and we'll have some more in-depth conversation at that point as to what those needs are. Tonight was really just to give you that flavor of here are connecting the dots. Here are the dots that we need to have you be thinking about as well with regard to the budgets and what we're trying to accomplish, and then ultimately helping to set the stage for the specific requests that we believe are critical moving forward for us. And we've been really very cautious the last several years with regard to staffing increases of any kind, and really focused on how can we repurpose, how can we, 2 years ago, We didn't replace a teacher, but we were able to repurpose a teaching position for the math coach. You know, we're not at a point where we have a lot of where we can completely look at just enrollment decreases and then say, okay, we can take this position, and use them in different ways. Hopefully we're going to be able to make some adjustments in the way we use current staff in some places, and in some places it's going to be, got to have a guidance counselor, you got to have this, you got to have that. Other questions?
Yes. On this document that you gave us, you gave a figure on the last paragraph on the first page of $28,000 for textbooks, and you also put in your $17,000 for algebra. Are we to assume that that means there's $11,000 for the AP government materials?
And also the civics textbooks that we are also adding. So it's updating textbooks on the second page for civics and teens and law.
Okay.
So those are numbers that are also coordinated. I put the largest chunk in terms of the 17 grand, but then the rest of the monies are associated with civics, teens and law. And
how many students have indicated that they would be willing to take an AP government course?
we're looking at the opportunity to offer one section, and the hope is that we get, full enrollment from 20 to, at least 20. And offering it as an honors possibility for students. So right now we have civics as a requirement, but if students wanted to take the AP course, that would fulfill their requirement for taking civics, and then also give them an opportunity to take an AP course, possibly their junior year, as opposed to waiting until their senior year for a lot of the AP courses. So we're trying to look at the AP offerings and trying to vary when they can take those AP courses so that they're able to get more bang for their buck for those students that want to challenge themselves in those classes.
What's your opinion on why we've got teachers having to teach skills and literacy instead of content at the high school level?
I think one of the areas related to the Common Core specifically goes into the need for us to look at how we empower students in terms of skills. So it's not about skill deficit, but it's more in terms of really taking those particular areas of reading, writing, speaking, listening, and research, and allowing students to have rich experiences through 9 through 12 that are going to establish that level of grit and purpose. Because I don't think that they come at 8th grade completely polished. I don't think an adult who doesn't practice intense, purposeful reading is well polished. So it's really the idea of giving them opportunities continually in their classes where we have sustained periods of them reading, close reading, but really affording them opportunities to extract information critically so that they can analyze situations, which I think across the nation is a concern, given the fact that as learners they're bombarded with all of this information at a very fast pace. So I don't think it's a matter of them not having the skill. I think it's a matter of them continuing to practice it and develop that muscle to where it really becomes an integral part of who we are and what we really think of how we teach. It really needs to be that connected.
Okay. In your junior portfolio, when will those presentations begin?
In March, we will have them as part of our professional development day. So every student is assigned to a panel, and they will have 20 minutes to present their portfolio to a panel of 3 to 4 members of the Clinton community, which would include teachers, paraprofessionals. Board of Ed, we had talked about possibly being on the panel as well.
Are we going to have a report back so we can see what this 3-year program has resulted in?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good.
We'd like to have to sit on the panels.
Depends on timing.
Yeah.
I'd
So
like
I
to
can-
listen. I'd like to see, God, we've heard a lot about this for the 3 years.
Yep.
Anxiously looking forward to some good results.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
But I truly think that, as much as, yes, reporting back after we're done with it makes sense and is part of the plan, participating as a member of one of those panels much richer. We can talk about it all you want, but sitting there and actually listening to how kids are making those connections between what they really can do well on those academic expectations and provide evidence, and then areas where they're still growing and they recognize it and have a plan for how I'm going to get better at it, is going to be way more powerful than anything we can probably say about that other than little clippets and vignettes
Or video.
or video.
I would really strongly recommend videoing the presentations because that's a very useful tool for the student then to be able to sit and watch and critique their own performance.
Absolutely.
It's also a good model for future students,
Yes.
for doing them to the
Exemplars.
right?
We actually had juniors this year, I believe juniors that were part of the acting class, do the portfolio presentations scripted
Right, we
for the
were about to
freshmen.
Elaine had to fill in here.
Good. That's good. The kids need to have that ability to be able to stand in front and talk.
And many of them would prefer to not, so I
Sure.
think it's a good
But
experience.
that also goes back to that skill piece that, for
Right.
the question that you just asked. With regard to that. It's not that they can't do it, but to the level of.
They need more opportunities to encourage them to do it.
Verification of skills.
Okay.
Other questions for?
All my questions are about staff. It's very
We're
thorough.
piquing your interest. Okay,
Thanks.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing some time with us this evening, and
Thank you, everybody.
when we,
Appreciate it.
when we meet again, it will be our special services, maintenance, athletics, and central office budgets.
There should be a copy of his file.
Getting a lot.
Yeah.
I agree.